sidechain compression happens when one audio signal is compressed while being triggered by another. So, meaning one sound source actually passes a threshold, but then a different source actually receives the compression and goes through the effect. Now, this is used for a couple of different reasons. In modern music production, in genres like EDM, we use it to create a pumping sort of effect. But we can also use it to give space to certain elements that share the same frequency range. For example, a bass guitar and a kick drum. We can use the kick drum as a signal that once it passes a threshold, compression will begin on the other element, meaning the bass guitar, and then there'll be a little bit of space given to each other. So let's figure out exactly how we go about doing this. I've got a Pro Tools session up here with some virtual instruments, just a kick and a simple little pad and piano part. Now when we listen to this, just loop it here, you can see that even when I solo it, I can't actually hear the kick drum, or as I've called it, trigger. And the reason for that is because I have set the output to be a bus. Alright, so I've set the output of this track to be a mono bus. So what that means is I'm not actually hearing any of the sound being produced by it, it's just being sent to that bus. But what I need to do in order to make the sidechain compression work is set up a compressor on the audio signal that I want to be compressed. So I'm going to solo the pad and the trigger, and I'm going to add a compressor to the pad because that's what I want the effect to be done to. So I'll just add the simple Pro Tools compressor. Now in order to make this work, we need to do two things. Make sure that we highlight the key here for sidechain, and we also have to set what that key input is going to be. In our case, it's going to be that bus from the kick trigger. So now we've got it set up that whenever the trigger signal passes our threshold on this compressor, the compression will begin happening to the pad. So let's start seeing how that works. I'll loop a section. And you can already start to hear that pumping effect. And if we want it to be more intense, you can change the attack time, increase the ratio, lower the threshold, and I'll bring up the gain so we can hear it happen a little bit more. So already you can hear that rhythmic pulsing sort of feel, and that's because I've set up the trigger on quarter note beats. So a lot of times this is what you'll hear in that modern music production. Without it, and with the sidechain. Okay, and that let's apply that same principle to this piano part. Add that in. So that's without. Now I can copy and paste this compressor by option clicking and dragging. And immediately you can hear that pumping effect. Okay, so let's say I want to use this in a different situation where it's not necessarily for the whole rhythmic feel, just to create a little bit of space for those conflicting frequency elements. I'm just going to go easier on the attack and the ratio and the threshold and all that. That will make the effect more subtle. But let's say I also still wanted to hear the kick drum. So instead of doing my output as that bus, I would keep a regular output and just use a send, and also send that kick signal to a bus and then follow the same procedure. So there you have it, sidechain compression, really useful tool if you want to separate certain sounds that share the same frequency, or if you want to create a cool rhythmic effect to sound a little bit more modern.